Welcome to the Last Beer Show.
3, 2, 1.
Jason!
Hey, Wayne. How's it going, buddy?
What's up, buddy?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm alright. How you feeling?
I am feeling pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it's been a few weeks.
It has been a few weeks, actually.
What have you gotten into?
Well, we've had several big shares here, as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm. As usual,
we just had a big 70 bottle share on Monday.
70 bottle share.
70 bottles.
Like 70 people or 70 beers?
70 bottles and cans. It was a Funky Buddha emphasis, but there were a lot of other beers. So we had every Funky Buddha beer that there is, and then a million other beers.
Oh, I got you. That sounds like fun.
Great Notion double stack. I mean, it was great. There was some really good stuff in there.
I couldn't make that one. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Can't make them all.
You can't make most.
Yeah. Yeah, kids, you can barely make.
It's something happening like every night. I'm like, yeah, that would be nice, but no life.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
My kids are my kids are my craft beer addiction.
Your beers.
So
your cellar.
Yeah.
I wish I could stick mine in the cellar.
Yeah.
But I'm bummed. Here all day.
Wait, your kids or the beer?
No, that was.
Yeah, I don't want you to get in trouble.
Yes.
Yes.
Ish.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes to an A4.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, we got some guests.
Yeah, we've got guests.
We're struggling with one microphone. We're gonna make this work. Introduce our guests, please.
Yes. So Sarah Keifer is here. She is a local lover of craft beer.
Ooh, a local lover.
Right.
Oh,
I'll
yes.
actually let you introduce yourselves because that feels more natural to me. So go ahead.
Sure. So I guess I was almost skipped over on that one. But...
No, you weren't. No, you weren't.
No, Sarah Keifer. No, I love craft beer. I'm from Seattle. Been to Portland. We have a big craft beer scene there. But love the scene in Atlanta, and excited to be part of the group.
Yep.
Awesome. Walter Munn, from Southeast Georgia originally, home of the very first brewery in the state of Georgia. And I just live here in Atlanta and love craft beer.
Yeah.
Cool.
Should be noted, Walter and I used to work together. That's how we met.
Indeed.
And Kyle?
Yeah. Kyle Lourie is the last name. A lot of people mispronounce the last part. So it's French-Russian. So any pronunciation is good with me. Moved to Atlanta it's been 12 years now, and kind of been into craft beer probably about 10 years or so. The scene's been great, and cool. Thanks for inviting me to this.
Yeah, thanks for being here. We've talked about a lot of different topics on this podcast. We've covered a lot of ground, and there's still a lot of ground to cover. But one of the things that we really like doing with this podcast, which is different than a lot of other podcasts, is we like to kind of get a pulse on what's happening in craft beer from different perspectives. So, we had this series on diversity. So we had women in craft beer, African Americans in craft beer. We had Casey.
Disabled Americans?
Yeah. He's
I don't
disabled.
know what you would actually say.
He has multiple sclerosis, and we had Casey on here and giving his perspective. Muscular dystrophy. That's right, muscular dystrophy. So his experience was a little different than our experience, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And then we just kind of had this idea to pull some people together who we know appreciate and can value craft beer in the more general market, and kind of get your thoughts behind it. So,
yeah, we were talking about having some people to discuss like the best taproom experience. Like what does a great taproom experience look like? And it dawned on me like every taproom, no taproom's going to get every aspect right for every single person. You really kind of like they build an environment that suits the personality of the people that work there and own it, the brewers and the brand and the identity that they're trying to set up and establish, right? So, we talked about bottle shops and growlers, but still that same theory applies. So we thought, well, what if we just get some consumers together, some people who enjoy consuming craft beer, the culture of it, the finding of it, the unveiling of all of these different flavor profiles and all the enjoyable aspects, both socially and from a product standpoint, together just to talk about the experience of all of those things. Because as a consumer, you interface with all of them, right? Like at different points during a week or a month, you may see breweries more often or bottle shops more often or different types of environments more frequently than others based on what's near your home or in route between home and work or next door, whatever. So we thought that to keep it broader, it might be better to just go at all of the points of sale, really, as consumers, to talk about what those things look like and how they feel and what we expect from them and those types of things. So.
Yeah, so before we get started, though, let's talk a little bit about what we've been drinking. We've actually been drinking for a while we got this system set up.
We got a microphone.
So we've got a microphone
We got a
now,
working microphone.
but we have had quite a little sharing of sorts before this even started. So you want to talk a little bit about what we've already had?
Well, Old
2 beer
Nation.
tables and a microphone.
Yeah, we got a lot of bottles. It's gonna
Yeah,
take
yeah.
a second. So, Full Earth from Old Nation, which I believe is in that M43 series. This red brick fruited Goseanna. I don't know if they're tribute to Toto or the cover of Toto by
Weezer.
but
Both great though.
Yeah,
both great. So this would be Fresh America,
by Civil Society.
Civil Society.
Yep.
I think that's the only civil society I've ever had.
46.
This 46, number 46 from Treehouse is highly sought after. And also number 47, a lot of people will pay big money for this number 47.
Yeah, those
This
are
can, you could probably have sold this on the internet and bought yourself dinner, like a lobster dinner.
Yeah, but I'd rather share it.
That a New Englander would have been very proud of.
Max profits.
Yeah, Max.
I haven't gotten into this one personally yet, but the Cherry Street's Baby Steps Hazy IPA and also the Cherry Street Sweet
Leilani, which is a small batch barrel aged coconut porter.
We also got into the
So icy
the Durham
blueberry
Sour Ale, the Blueberry Coconut Peach.
That's from Barrel Culture in Durham. We had 2 phones, which is Other Half in the Vail.
Other Half in the Vail, 2 phones.
Yep. We had the Raspberry Green Tea Milkshake IPA from Tired Hands and Omnipolo.
We did. That was definitely interesting.
Yep.
Other Half and
Green
Cheek Strawberry Whips.
Some strawberry magic.
Sour Strawberry India Pale Ale.
Yep.
It tasted like
Heaven.
Laffy Taffy. Doppelganger, always a classic from our friends at
Treehouse.
And local favorites for us, the variant doing Good S'morning.
Yeah, this is the Bourbon Barrel Aged Good S'morning.
And then a bit of a curveball, a mead from Misbehavin Meads with a baseball bat. I haven't gotten into that one or the Good S'morning. Storefront Special Series from Moon Underwater Brewing. This is it was really good. It was like a Belgian quad, right? Year 2 red wheat wine, 11.2.
Yeah.
This just give you a straw.
Yeah, very interesting.
750.
Yep.
So we got into a lot of bottles while we're having technical difficulties.
So
with
our guests are well lubricated.
Yeah, they're ready to roll.
I know this podcast just went to MA mature
Right.
really quickly.
Did it?
Well, yeah,
One
now
phrase.
it is.
One phrase.
Now
will
it's
put you there.
yeah, now it's TV MA.
It's not one of the 7 words. We're good.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Innuendo all day.
Yeah. Okay.
Howard Stern made a living not using 7 words.
Innuendo.
Okay.
I don't see how we got to hit the E button.
Come to in your window.
We talked about this. Don't sit on the show.
All right.
Melissa Etheridge's bomb though.
Yeah, she is.
I'm going to just let that silence speak
All right.
for itself.
All right.
So go ahead.
So let's dive in. Let's we talk a lot about what does the craft beer experience look like for people of lots of different walks of life, from consumers to professionals to different people who are experienced it based on their kind of walking in their shoes. So, what do you see as the current state of craft beer for you and your experience? Let's go super general first.
I was gonna say that is a broad
Let's go
question.
super general first, and then we'll kind of dive in. We'll get a little bit more nuance after that.
Who are you asking?
I'm asking
I was
Sarah.
Looking straight
Sarah?
at me.
Yeah.
No, I think there are a lot of players trying to be great craft brewers right now in the scene, and there are very few that are succeeding. So I think for a craft brewer to be successful, they have to be continually innovative and unique and creative. And a lot of people will get a one-hit wonder and try to ride that. And so I think as more and more people get into the field, it's important for craft brewers to maintain their innovation and their creativity and make it consistently creative while still considering the base that made them who they are. So it's a tough balance, but I think it's important to remember both sides of it.
So let me ask you this on that note: who do you see as doing that and innovative in that space?
Well, that's a loaded question, but
Yeah, I don't know.
I think in Atlanta there are some standouts. Variant, for instance, is one that's consistently putting out really good stuff while maintaining, I think, some consistency around what made them great to begin with. There are others that I probably shouldn't name on the podcast, but that I think are just trying to depend on what made them great to begin with, but aren't continuing that creativity and innovation. And in the craft beer scene, especially in your local crowd, you can't depend on something that made you good 5 years ago. There's too many players in the game at this point, in my opinion.
Okay. What about you, Walter?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of that. If I'm kind of expounding on that, trying to give you something else, I would say that, I think recognizing where your sweet spot is, what you do well, right? Something that came up earlier in our kind of off podcast conversation is just the idea of some breweries do really good at certain styles or certain flavor profiles and things like that. Part of that may have to do with the chemistry of your water, right? It could be any number of different things, but recognizing where your sweet spot is and sort of expounding on the places where you're good and taking different creative avenues from there can do a lot for still giving that aspect of I'm constantly innovating, constantly making better products without getting away from what made you good to begin with. So there's room to be innovative without trying to create every style of beer and every type of flavor profile that you may or may not succeed at doing. And so when I think about it, like I look at a lot of people who are really good at making IPAs, and whether that is a super fruity IPA or something that's like really floral or something that's got assertive bitterness, right? Like you may be good at all of those things, but recognizing where your sweet spots are and where maybe the thing that you tried brewing didn't come out so great, maybe you don't put that out to market or things like that. I think that's really important in terms of what I've had and enjoyed.
So you don't have to, again, expand on the exact same question. Let me add a point of specificity to it to some degree, Kyle, to say that expectation for creativity and maintaining a level of quality across the board on those taps or cans or whatever, is that an expectation that is specific to the taproom experience or the can and bottle experience in the bottle shop?
Well, I think the taproom experience definitely adds another factor where you expect to be able to go in a taproom and maybe try some one-offs that you're not going to be able to get in the bottle shop, that you're not going to be able to get necessarily in the can or buy that in the package store.
Right.
Bottle shops are a whole nother deal that I think that our laws have changed here now, so I see bottle shops kind of going away a little bit more. But just kind of to some of the points that were already made, the fads that I see right now are kind of, it seems like we're in the wild, wild west with craft beer because, you got the Answer Brew Pub doing Anderson Valley Goza with a ton of fruit in it. Everybody's going crazy for it. And then everybody's wanting to do pastry stouts. And those are all really popular, styles and stuff, but it seems like a lot of like everybody thought hazy IPAs were going to be kind of a fad. Well, that's a style now. That's not really a fad,
Right.
But it's interesting to see what becomes popular on the secondary market. And to me, that's kind of what I kind of keep my eye on a lot, and what I'm kind of interested in. But it's funny to see what people kind of gear toward, and just because one brewery gets hyped up over a certain beer, and then everybody tries to follow.
Right.
The mainstays have maintained those classic styles and kept true to what they always do, and they don't really go through the cycles.
I got you.
I do think the market's getting saturated though. So especially like local markets, when you think about like Atlanta or Portland or Colorado or some of those that are more known now for craft beer, that there are too many players. And so when you get outside of the tap room, like the tap room is one thing where, to your point, I think that you absolutely expect a unique experience. When you get outside of that and you go to your local Kroger or Publix or Safeway or wherever you are in the US, you expect to see something still rather unique. And if you don't get that, then it's less appealing. So I have a hard time actually shopping for beer, because I don't go to Publix and see what I want. I see what they're releasing, and it's been standard, and it's been there for 3 years, and I actually want something unique and innovative from a craft beer. And I think more and more, like the folks that are distributing beyond their tap room are getting kind of complacent in what they're actually putting out there. So
part of that probably has to do a lot with what people are actively buying, right? So like I don't know about everyone else, but I know that for me, like a tropical IPA, like that's the thing that's like overdone from almost every single brewery everywhere. Like every single brewery has some sort of variation of a tropical or a citrus IPA, and there's nothing wrong with that, but because it's what's selling, right? Everybody's sort of putting something out there. So when you go to a retail vendor, whether that's your grocery store that has a good selection or a bottle shop, it's pretty hard not to get confronted with like 10 different variations of almost the same beer, right? And so there's an element of, if it's popular, it's going to sell, and if it's going to sell, we want to make it as a brewery. So I'm trying to find that balance of how do we push innovation and yet at the same time like put something out there that will move off the shelves, because they need to do that.
Yeah, I saw something recently. So here in Atlanta, New Realm Brewing is a brew pub here in Atlanta. If you haven't heard of New Realm, you've definitely probably heard of Mitch Steele, who wrote the book on IPAs. And he was recently a part of a new brew pub that opened up here in Atlanta called New Realm. And again, he wrote the book on IPAs, primarily West Coast IPAs, because he's the former brewmaster over at Stone. He's actually releasing a Northeast IPA, which I think is crazy, because he's known as the West Coast IPA guy. He literally wrote the book on it. So for him, that's what people are buying. So they're making a Northeast IPA. So it's incredibly interesting as to how they're kind of shifting and pivoting, right? Pivoting to some of these things that are incredibly popular, using the knowledge that they already have.
But I think that also makes sense with Stone opening a bi-coastal brewery. So they're now open in Virginia. So they're trying to appeal to both crowds, right? So as they go more national with their flavor profile, they automatically have to try and market to the people that are in a different flavor profile to begin with.
Stone's done hazy.
So
They also have a brewery in Berlin.
Yeah,
they do.
That's true.
Yep.
You got Lagunitas has opened up in Chicago as well, right? So a lot of the traditionally West Coast IPA spots have opened up locations in other areas in order to open up additional markets necessarily, right? It helps them with distribution, but it also helps them with new audiences who are like, oh, this is something I haven't had before.
Right.
Because you may not go to a bottle shop and be like, oh, I really want this Lagunitas IPA, but if they've got a local craft brew pub, right? And all of a sudden your opinion towards that may change. So it's kind of interesting.
You get that Heineken one.
Right.
I'm not worried about one building. Well, cool. So, I think when it comes to tap rooms specifically, a couple of you mentioned having something unique in the tap room that is not available elsewhere or not a distro or anything like that. So what else do you look for when it comes to a tap room that makes it feel like a place that appeals to you in general? So go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll just use one that's super local to me, about a mile from my house, and we already talked about it. Variant. They just really, they're killing it. There's no other way to describe it. They're busy every night of the week that they're open. They're open Wednesday through Sunday, and I was in there last night on a Wednesday night, and they were busy. And and they're supposed to close at 9, but they do a soft close because they still have people in there at 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock, ordering beer. So why would they close? And they've got a great tap room experience. They didn't they spared no expense on the tap room itself. It's a custom built tap room, and everything is you feel like you're almost in a, I like to describe it as almost like you're in a Vail lodge, ski lodge or something on the inside. You got the wood
Almost like a
beams.
barn.
Yeah, but you get the upscale barn, chic barn feel, and they've you go in some breweries and the line could be like 15 to 20 people long to get a beer. It's that way in Variant, but it goes really fast. The staff is great behind the bar. You're not going to wait too long to get a beer. It's not a big tap room, but it's always a great environment. They've always got one-offs. And this is not a brewery that distributes or anything like that right now. So you're not going to find their beers in stores. So
do you go because it's great beer, or do you go because it's banging?
I go for I really like the beer, but I also like the atmosphere. The atmosphere is a component for me, definitely.
Gotcha. How about you?
Yeah, for me, I travel a lot for work, so it's kind of interesting. Like, I have obviously the Atlanta beer scene for me, so I know a lot of places that I like here, and I know all of their beers really well for the most part, right? When I travel, it's really important for me that like the staff there doesn't treat you like an idiot because you don't know all of their beers, right? Like there's one thing for understanding like you've got really cool beers, and there's another thing of like not everyone is from your area, and recognizing that's really critical. So understanding that like every person who walks up to you has probably varying degrees of knowledge of what do you brew well, what are interesting flavors, what are unique or rare for you, right? And having someone who can kind of explain that to you, it's like, hey, you could have this beer literally anytime you come to the city of New York, right? Or someplace in rural Pennsylvania or whatever it is, right? But this beer is unique for us. We only brew it one time a year. And getting that point across to someone who's a visitor, to me, has always been like a really valuable proposition. I can go to a number of different places and have great beers. But when I have someone who explains to me, it's like, hey, you couldn't have this beer if you tried again for another year. We're only going to brew it one time, or it's only once a year. That's a really cool experience for me. So having a brewery who recognizes that and sort of pitches that to you as the customer means a lot to me. So that's something I've always enjoyed.
Gotcha.
No, I agree. So I travel a lot, both business and personally. I think locally, I look for really quality beer and the atmosphere. So Variant, Pontoon, Torch Top, all of these have very unique approaches to how they create like a local atmosphere and appeal to the local crowd. They make great beers. They create an atmosphere that is really conducive to who we are as a craft beer crowd. They have great food, whatever it is. When I've traveled, like the examples I think of are Boulevard, which is one of the original craft breweries. They have like 4 different types of food that you can go for, and they have a tour, and it's fantastic, and it's one of the very educational experiences, as well as a lot of really good craft beer that you can't get everywhere. They have some that are locally there, and they distribute others, and all of those types of things. That was one of the best experiences I've had at a local at a craft brewery that's not local. And then I think about like Europe, where I've been to like Europe and the Czech Republic and Germany, Czech Republic, Belgium, all of these others, where they approach it very differently, and it's all how do we stay within this vein but create variety and all of those types of things. So part of it I think it's kind of a combination of everything, where you cater to your local crowd because you know what your local crowd wants, but you also have to have space and room for people that are trying to explore and evaluate new flavors. And I think a lot of folks around the country and a lot around the world actually do a really good job of that.
Right. There's nothing worse, like, especially when you're traveling, but even locally, like you go into some chain wings and craft beer joint and they have 100 taps there's no way they're turning over that much beer and keeping all those things fresh.
Nah.
But the staff only knows anything about Coors Light, Bud Light, and,
Right.
And Shock Top.
they couldn't answer a single question you had about any of the local beers, and then you're like, oh, what am I doing? Who knows how long that's been on draft and the last time those lines were cleaned. But yeah, I get it. So so what about bottle shops specifically? Like, do you have like a bottle shop strategy? Like, none of those beers are like bespoke, right? Those are all things that are in distribution. You can get it anywhere in town as long as it's still available, right? So and that goes for, you know, any town. So do you have like a bottle shop like strategy or way you approach that? Or
For me, it's been hard to find the exclusive beers in bottle shops. Like
there's a big release like
It's
that.
a big
Like
release.
Friday they drop it, and you got to get there, and you can have 1 4-pack per customer or something like that.
right, and it's you know, depending on the weather, you either get it or you don't. You know what I mean? And fundamentally, the good stuff for me, anyway, my experience has not been positive with bottle shops because I've never been there in enough time, or it's just been tough for me to pick out the right stuff.
Right.
So I think like you either have to be very, very in the scene and understand when to get there and what to look for and all of those types of things, or you're kind of SOL.
Gotcha.
I'm pretty fortunate. I'm close to a couple of bottle shops that do a good job of that, of kind of catering to the customer, right? I'll throw out a shout out to Sprayberry Bottle Shop, right? I mean, I think they do a fantastic job of blending the idea of, if you know what's coming out, get on our list, right? And if you don't know what's coming out, that's okay, because 50% of what we bring in of every style of beer is just going on the rack, right? And so they do a great job of saying, like, we don't want to only cater to the people who know what gets distributed when and where and what time exactly, right? And also the person who's just wanting to try out new beers. And if I show up on a Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning or whatever, right? Like, they're like, hey, here's what we got in today. So finding that balance for a bottle shop can be difficult, right? Because you've got a set number of customers who come to your shop and try and get craft beers, and they want rare, unique stuff. And so I get it. You want to have a list for some of that. So I think they do a good job of trying to find that 50-50 margin. More places that do that, the better. Because if there are other places who are 100% of their rare beers basically go on a back order list, and if you didn't know that it was coming out, you're not getting it.
Yeah.
And that's a really unfortunate feeling.
That
If you're
makes
like,
sense.
oh, that's where I wanted to go and pick up my beer, and that's not happening.
Right. How about you,
Yeah, I don't.
Scott? You shook your head no when I
I don't.
asked you
I don't do
You
bottle
go to
shops a whole lot. I don't shop at a lot of bottle shops.
You drink any filler beer at all?
No, I do a little bit, but I go to a bottle shop here and there. But I just am not a big. I mean, to be quite honest, I trade for a lot of beers, and I have a lot of beers that are at home already that I need to drink, so I don't need to go buy more beer.
Gosh.
So that's just me personally. But
I don't know how people do that.
No, but I think that's a fair statement. Like for me, whether it's trading or I'm part of groups where we do a monthly exchange or things of that nature, that's actually how I get beers that are different versus going to the bottle shop.
Yeah,
It doesn't help that I brew massive batches of like 13 gallons and 15 gallons of beer at a time, right? So like,
That's
for
your
me,
filler beer is homebrew.
my filler beer is literally homebrew or homebrew from a friend, right?
Yeah.
That you traded for.
Like,
So
this one came out all right because I got 3 of these in between my expensive sour.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
so it's always fun.
I've had some. There's been a couple bottle shops near me in Roswell, specifically where I live, that did not make it, and they were super focused on craft beer. But the problem is you know, you don't get the beers in that people really. You have a lot of beers that are just going to sit on the shelves, and the shelf life is not very long for a lot of the IPAs that are being made. And distribution has changed in Atlanta over very, very drastically over the last year.
It's
Modern
changed in a
hops
lot of
and-
places.
Yeah, I mean, so that's changed things a lot. So maybe I'll be in bottle shops a little bit more with some different stuff coming in distribution that I couldn't normally get here. But just in general, bottle shops have not been a big part of my craft beer experience.
I was thinking of a handful of bottle shops which are the kind of the exception to the rule, and that is these are bottle shops that really focus on the consumer, and they really focus on kind of breaking down some of those barriers, and that's like Edmonds Oast and Charleston Beer Exchange It used to be Charleston Beer Exchange. Now it's Edmonds Oast Bottle Shop in Charleston. There's also City Beer in San Francisco, which has an amazing selection of beer. They have a lot of beers that they cellar that they actually serve as bottles, but then also just the beers that they carry as a bottle shop is incredible. And then lastly, Chuck's Hop Shop in Seattle, which is I think he calls it Land of 1,000 Beers.
It's fantastic.
Land of 10,000 beers.
And in Seattle, you can consume on premise.
Yeah, and
It's
it's
on the bottle shop. They got like picnic tables by the. You just go crazy.
Yeah.
And it's a phenomenal bottle shop. I mean, you can find stuff there that people are looking for all over the country, but the people there are incredibly unpretentious. They're incredibly helpful, and because they have so much really good stuff on the shelf, even if you're like us, like we really seek out like this really crazy rare special stuff. You'll find a lot of that stuff just sitting there on the shelf because there's so much of it. So I think that there are some exceptions to the rule, like I said, like Edmonds Oast and City Beer and Chuck's Hop Shop. But for bottle shops to compete in this day and age, they really have to offer something special for an experience all around. And
I think they cater to people who like a specific style, because if you like a style especially, you will normally find depth in that style at a good bottle shop, right? So if you like Belgians, you're not chasing down the latest, hottest, trendiest Belgian ale. Like if you want a single, you get a single. A triple, you want a quad, you get a quad. You get any of the sours, all the fruiteds, you get framboise, whatever all these really amazing Belgian beers. They're all 8 weeks old at best, right? So it's like, but they'll have depth in that, or they'll have depth in Gozas in general. They'll have all the Anderson Valleys. They'll have other things locally that are really great as well. I think that's where a bottle shop's value really comes in, is like, if you've got a style you chase, chances are they've got 25 things in that style that are not new or hot, like they're annual bottled.
I just think that's the case in what I would call the good bottle shops in every city. But when you're talking about convenience,
I'm not talking about going to the gas station.
No, but
get a 6-month-old IPA.
No, but for instance, where I live, there's probably 4 or 5 bottle shops within a mile of me, and none of them have any good craft beer at all. So if I'm going for
wine,
what's that?
Wine shops?
No, they have everything: wine, beer, liquor, whatever it is.
I gotcha.
So they're package stores. They call them in the South, it's package stores.
Package stores.
In the Northwest,
stores.
it's like liquor stores, whatever you want to call them. That all is within a mile of me, whether it's a grocery store, or a package store, liquor store, whatever it is. None of them have the stuff I'm looking for from a craft beer perspective. So you really have to find in your city what is the 1, 2, 3, whatever it is, that are actually invested in craft beer.
Right.
And that's what's going to have the depth that you're talking about.
Yeah, those are the shops I go to.
Right.
That's my reality.
But for me, that's a 20, 30 minute drive to whichever store that is. So it's kind of an investment in time for those of us that actually care about that.
Locally, for us, I think, in other cities it may not be a big of a deal, but I always, people, you'll have friends that, hey, by the way, I heard that's dropping in Atlanta. Can you grab me some of this? Or no, I'm not driving 45 minutes and sitting in traffic to go pick up this beer for you, because that's a annoying thing to do, and I was not going to do it. And so Atlanta,
it's not going to be a dollar for dollar trade, that's for sure.
Yeah.
First of all,
but our traffic here creates a problem to go from Roswell to Midtown or downtown or Decatur to a bottle shop and pick up a beer that might be dropping. Maybe you miss out on the release, or maybe it's people still chase Bourbon County. That's fine. Maybe Bourbon County's dropping, but you don't want to chase it, and so that's a problem in Atlanta. It may not be a problem in other cities as much as we have here. Right. And that to me has eliminated more the going to different bottle shops for me, is just because I'm just not dealing with the traffic.
Yeah, I don't know if I would go to multiple bottle shops or anything.
Nope.
But I have a couple that I frequent that I like, that they're pretty close to a route that I already am on, so you can dump off real quick, stop out, hit
Yeah,
it.
my cutoff is about 20, 25 minutes or so. If it's less than that, then I don't mind just making a specific run. If it's longer than that, then it needs to be part of something else I'm doing here.
Yeah, you gotta
That's
make an
part of being in
excuse
Atlanta,
to have
right?
another errand in
Yeah.
that area of
That
town.
area.
Oh,
No.
you know what I gotta do? There's
Right. I mean,
It doesn't have to be a particularly important
Yeah,
area. It just
right.
generally that
Yeah.
direction.
a exactly.
The worst part is I work from
Marietta.
home too, and so I really
Same.
don't have a big
Setting it up,
excuse.
yeah.
No, and that's my challenge. And I think more and more as we progress and technology becomes what it is, that's going to be more and more people's story. We work from home, we do what we do, and so for me to go to Marietta is an out of the trip way to go to Sprayberry. Sprayberry is fantastic. They do a really, really great job. For me to get there is an out of the way kind of experience. Same with the other ones that I would say kind of mimic Sprayberry in this area.
So the gig economy and the knowledge worker work from home space is going to be the end of bottle shops as we know it.
Could be.
So I just saw this the other day. Actually, I just
That's
saw
narrowing
this.
it down.
Yeah. Cycle Brewing just announced a new initiative partnering with a shipper to ship beer across the country, which is not something that a lot of breweries,
Especially craft.
craft breweries have been able to do because of state line issues.
Really heavy
Cycle
to that.
partnered with a craft shipper. I can't recall the name of
It's
it.
illegal to cross state lines with beer in some states.
In some states,
Right.
right.
Technically. I don't know if you get
Allegedly.
pulled over for
I mean,
it.
like
but-
allegedly, right?
But Cycle partnering with this shipper, I mean, they're selling one of their hottest beers really on shipping,
Online.
which is really crazy. And it leads me to think that you're going to start to see a lot more of that where...
in most states, it's illegal to ship beer into.
I was going to say, figuring out
That's
the
why-
math and the legality
that's
of
why
it
you-
for craft brewers is
Yeah.
going to be important. But if they figure it out, I know that myself, being
Hugely
somebody who wants to
successful.
take advantage of like unique beers or things that are coming straight from the brewery, that's important. So
Yeah.
I mean,
From,
that's
from
why
what I understand, that the company that Cycle is using is started, just with Cycle. They're friends with Cycle, so it's a sort of a side business. I'm not saying Cycle is part of it,
Right.
but I don't know if they have the same type of regulations that what like a big like a vino shipper
Right.
does with
I was
Mead
gonna
or
say.
whatever. So
well,
this
mead
is like
and
a
wine
this
is
is like a
perfectly
guy
legal.
who started shipping beer for Cycle, like almost like a mule
If
service.
Yeah.
there's a capability to ship wine across state lines, there has to be a way.
Well, it's
For
not
beer,
illegal
yeah.
to ship wine across state lines. It's illegal to ship beer across most state lines.
It-
Some states have
it-
you
in
can
the
ship
South,
in, you can't ship
right.
out. Some state, even in the north,
it's all
there are
about
a lot of-
taxes,
you
though.
It's all
can't.
about taxes.
It's all about collecting taxes
So-
in each
So if
state.
you pay the right amount, you're allowed
Mm-hmm.
to ship anywhere, essentially, right?
I don't think that's correct, but I would
No,
say that
I don't.
that's why when FedEx, you tell them you have beer, they can shut you down. You
Yeah.
tell them that you have pickles.
Wait, that was your number one problem. You told them you had beer.
If
I just
no
say it's
carrier will
trinkets.
ship beer for you.
Yeah, Coke collectibles.
None of them will. They will tell you it is not allowed. It's a banned substance.
Yeah.
FedEx, UPS, USPS.
USPS, all of them.
They all
Yeah.
shut it down. And it's a banned substance because about 25 states it's illegal to ship in, and it's probably more. It's
Correct.
illegal to ship out.
Kyle tells FedEx it's vibrators.
It's usually-
Yeah, I do.
No one looks in there.
I always tell them it's homemade hot sauce. Nobody's gonna open
I
that
just say
thing
it's
up.
gifted
Snow globes or
trinkets.
lube is what I like to
Yeah,
call it.
no one.
Snow
Snow
globes.
globes and lube.
See,
That
lube,
feels like a
they're
new
not gonna
band
have-
name.
there are no follow-up questions to it's lube.
I just get weird
No.
looks.
If you
and-
said
and-
you
and-
had
and-
snow
and-
globes and lube, they're like, cool.
Done.
That's right.
That's the end of that conversation. No one wants to know anymore.
They're like they're trying to put two and two together. They're like, no, you're good.
Yeah.
Weird looks and awkward moments.
Thank you, sir. Have a great
Yeah,
day.
thank you, sir.
And you
You
get
may
a
have
nod.
another.
and-
No globe's gonna get you side eye.
Lube won't get you side eye, but snow globes.
Lube,
My friend.
if you just tell them it's a box of lube, they're just gonna
Oh
look
my
down
God.
and finish the whole thing and wait for you to leave. If you just tell them it's a box of snow globes, they're gonna go, "Come on, right?"
Yeah, right. The
Alright.
lube makes it a little more real.
At least lube is legitimate. Nobody shipped 12 snow globes coast to coast.
Like,
What's that
do people
sloshing?
ship
It's
12
an
cans of
artisan-
lube?
It's an
It's
artisanal
little
snow
slow
globe.
globes.
It's artisanal lube.
Oh gosh. It's
I mean,
handcrafted.
I'm in for it, yeah, but
Barbecue sauce is another.
So many
Barbecue sauce, another
popular.
popular one.
Pickles,
So
Pickles,
many.
popular, yeah. Pickles.
Yeah, the
definitely
key
on that
is
one.
don't go in there, don't go into FedEx or UPS and
Without
try to
a
print a
story.
label. Have your label, print it out, have an account, drop your box
yeah,
off, and
yeah.
leave.
Without
Yep,
story.
You don't get any
Right.
questions.
You can tell them it's wine, but they have to pack it. I think there's a funny thing. You have to like have official wine packaging, or they have to
just
pack
pack your
it.
stuff up, print your
No,
label,
but if you
tape
pack
it
it
on,
tight
and
enough,
drop
they
it
don't
off.
question you.
But
I do it at
If you tell them
I
it's
don't do
beer,
that.
you're done. They're gonna have a nice day, so take your box with you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And having a nice FedEx. I'm pretty sure the FedEx guy.
FedEx is
that I use,
$50.
I'm pretty sure they know I'm shipping beer.
They're just
but
glad
they
it's
just-
not weed.
They want your money.
They want
your money at the end of the day.
Their business.
Right. So.
They understand they're a drug delivery service.
Ooh, digging deep, man. Getting personal.
Drugs.
Not for me.
Drugs. That's
I just
legit.
mean they understand that there's a large percentage of the stuff
There's
they
things
ship.
that
I didn't know you were
happen
gonna call
that
me out
shouldn't
like
happen.
that.
I didn't intend to, but it just kind of happened.
My dog
Most
had
of
a
the
little
packages
bit
are
of
B2B logistics, but okay.
B2B logistics.
All right, let's.
That's a different kind of business.
Um,
So what are the types of things that you look for in a tap room? So what are the things that keep you going back to a tap room outside of just you know?
outside?
No, we didn't ask all of them that.
Okay.
So Kyle answered it, but Walter didn't answer it.
He didn't
and
answer it.
Sarah answered it either. What are the things that keep you going back to a tap room after you've been one time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think so. Unique beers and like the product that you're serving is one thing, right? And I think we talked a lot about that earlier. So if I kind of step outside of what's the quality of the product that you're putting out there, and it's not something that I've had the last 3 times I went there, that's one thing, right? But the other thing is certainly something that got mentioned was the idea of the general experience. Are there a lot of people there? Is it too many people? Can you not handle the volume of number of customers that you have there? That's a concern, right? But if we're here in Georgia, right? So in the middle of the summertime, I want to go somewhere that actually has either sort of set up for outside, either good shade and fans, or a significant amount of indoor space that kind of accounts for the fact that it's hot as crap here in the summertime and it's 90% humidity, and that's just where we live, right? Where you are matters a lot. If you're wintertime in freaking rural Wisconsin, right, you probably want some place that's got some pretty good heaters. So I think the venue and how you use your space matters a lot. Making sure that you kind of account for the seasons and when people are showing up. But then also the experience. So like cool things that I've done with my wife, we went to Hawaii and we went to Maui Brewing. They had a fantastic space with outdoor giant Jenga and a lot of board games and things like that. And you're like, we're just here on vacation. We just want to enjoy ourselves. So having some place, whether it's big groups or small groups, who can kind of figure out a way to have a good time beyond just the beer you have, goes a really long way. And that could be as simple as just having a bookshelf of 7 board games and a couple of decks of cards. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it really does help a lot for enjoying yourself, whether you're there in a big group and everybody's trying a bunch of unique beers, or you're just having a couple of beers and enjoying yourself.
So you don't want to just sit at a table with a bunch of people all looking at their phones?
I think we all kind of struggle with that all the time, right?
No,
Like,
I think breweries are the new coffee shop. Craft breweries are the new coffee shop, right? So it's the same qualities that made us go to our local coffee shops that said it was a quality product, which means it's from a beer perspective, that means it's innovative, it's creative, and it's not the same thing that I came from last time that I was here. But it's also the board games, it's the cornhole that's there, it's the barbecues that they've got, it's the partnerships they do with, gyms and yoga studios and things of that nature that combine the experience of beer with something that's probably more healthy, or things of that nature that actually attract us to go and participate in something within their environment, right? And then also experience the beer. So I don't think craft beer is necessarily like focused on just the beer. It's focused on the experience that you have when you're at the brewery. I love Pontoon because you go there and it's a fun atmosphere. You can play cornhole and the bartenders are making jokes about the Seahawks and, like all of these types of things where we actually we feel a part of a community more than just a patron. And I think that's really important in the craft beer industry. It's quality beer, it's feeling a part of something, and then it's actually partnering on something that's more than just the beer.
Yeah, well, to be fair, it's real easy to laugh at Seattle anyway. their football teams.
Whoa.
Touche, sir.
But what I would
Sir.
say is,
How many rings do you have?
what I would say is that now more than ever, a lot of tap rooms have become bars, and your job, if you want to sell more beer out of your tap room, is to provide a place where people want to stay there for longer.
Want to hang out.
And if you create an atmosphere where people just don't feel welcome and they don't feel like they just want to stay and hang out, they're literally going to get one beer and leave.
Yep.
And your job is to keep people there as long as possible. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's a big trend towards putting televisions onto gas pumps.
Yeah.
And if you stop and think about it, if you're paying attention to that television and what's going on the television and not how much gas you're pumping, you're going to pump more gas. It's actually really brilliant. But tap rooms that provide a lot more ways for you to waste time and kill time and enjoy the time that you're at while you're there will do better because they'll sell a lot more beer in the long run. So you kind of have to focus on those things.
Georgia, right? Obviously, with the recent legal changes in terms of what they can and can't do at breweries, that's been a significant change. Some places have adapted well to that. Other places maybe less so. So that's kind of a kind of an interesting, like, being in the middle of change, right? And seeing who's adapted well to it and who hasn't has been kind of interesting, right? So I don't know about everybody else, but like for me, that's been fascinating of watching the people who recognize that you're no longer just a place that offers tours and tickets to go have a few beers. Like, you're a retail point of sale, right? Like, you're an opportunity to sell me more unique beers that you have, or you're a place that I can go have one or two beers and decide that, like, I've had enough and I'm gone. And in some places figure that out faster than others.
Yeah, I was thinking about breweries that have done a really good job of that. Here locally, Creature Comforts, they have a beer called Athena, which is a Berliner Weiss that they created as kind of an entryway into sour beers. And they actually created a Berliner bar where they have Athena on draft, and then they'll actually mix it with different kind of concoctions, sort of like cocktails. And then another local brewery, Monday Night Brewing, they actually created this thing called the Hop Hut, which is just a really small, kind of looks like a little tiki hut that they created in their tap room to provide different beers that only are available at that spot in the brewery. Again, as a way to drive more people into the brewery outside of the bottle shop experience. What do you think?
I agree. The Seahawks suck.
Whoa! Wow, that is just inappropriate, sir. Inappropriate.
I'm a Patriots fan.
Yeah, I'm picking.
Cheaters. Tom Brady's a cheater.
Go easy.
Yeah.
So your balls are flat?
When
is
the
what you're saying?
lights
Exactly. Thank you.
When the lights are on your team, we'll see what shows.
Flat balls.
Flat
That's what
balls.
shows.
We'll see.
Flat balls.
We shall see. Don't be jealous.
That's just no jealousy. It's
Don't
facts.
be jealous. There are no facts there.
You brought up a good point about the TVs, though, because I've just noticed that a lot of the breweries that I kind of frequent in my little area around where I live, Roswell, Alpharetta area, a year or so ago, there wasn't a lot of breweries with like TVs, and it was just kind of more focused on the beer. But now that the laws have changed, and people just sitting there and treat a brewery like a bar, the places that have good TV selections, like Variant, we brought them up 10 times already tonight, but it creates a better experience. You're gonna go there. Oh, let's go watch the game because they have great TVs there, so it's more like a sports bar. But you can go get great beer instead of going to the actual sports bar and getting mediocre beer.
Yeah,
Interesting.
definitely in this area, it used to be that you had to go to some mediocre sports bar to catch, a local soccer game and grab a really good craft beer. And it's not like that anymore. Again, most breweries in this area, are showing these soccer games. We have a really popular soccer team here in the Atlanta area, but everywhere it's like that. In every city it's like that. How do we get people in, and how do we keep them here for as long as possible to buy more beer?
I'm not going to frequent a brewery that has TVs.
If
there are TVs, it is a humongous turnoff.
But this is the same kind of we could run into that same argument around kids too, because there were people that won't go to a tap room that allows kids as well.
True.
It's
Some
just
people-
what
And other
experience
places
you're
have
looking
done-
for.
Other places have done really well having
Because
a
they
super
do.
family-friendly environment, right?
I
And same
agree.
with dogs,
Yeah.
right? Like people that allow dogs in their brewery will get a lot more patronization than.
I
And
think
that's
it's like-
location has a lot to do.
The kids thing is a very interesting sort of, I just think, dynamic with breweries.
Yeah, well, I mean,
because
what do you think about that? Because you have kids.
I think it's very interesting that some breweries decide not to allow that, but I'm also one that doesn't really prefer to bring my kids to breweries. But I also don't think that they should. I just think it's very exclusive to try to say, oh, you can't bring your 2-year-old with you, tagging along if you want to pick up some beers and have 2 or 3 beers, and that's annoying to the people. But I'm also a person that I don't enjoy bringing my kid with me to a brewery because that takes away from the experience to me. But if there are other parents who are fine with that and can enjoy that, and they can have their kids running around and going crazy and having a great time, then more power to them. It doesn't bother me one bit as a patron of the brewery. But I'm turned away from breweries that don't really allow it, just because I want that option.
Interesting.
Yeah, while we're talking about kids, let's take my kid into the podcast as well, right? She really wanted to be a part of it, but I think it's interesting for me, right? I think about that a lot. I got a really young child, and sometimes of the year, like I like to take advantage of some of the cool things that some of the family-friendly breweries do. So like Scofflaw and Wild Heaven did really cool things around Christmas time, and I'm not a huge guy on going to the mall and taking pictures with Santa, right? But my wife wants pictures of your kid with Santa, you're going to do it. And so both of those places did really cool events where you were in the brewery taking a picture of your kid with Santa, but you were at a brewery enjoying like good beer, and there were like barrels in the background. So it's kind of neat, unique pictures you wouldn't see most people's families with. So I thought both of those places handled that really well here in the Atlanta area. I'm sure there are other places outside of Atlanta that do the same things, right? So like I don't actively take my daughter to every brewery that I want to go to, but it is nice to have a place that is family friendly. And so finding that balance of, is it me going to hang out with bros and people who just enjoy craft beer, or am I going with my wife and my kid and I want to play cornhole and let her go get the mean bags and bring them back, right? So finding that balance is really interesting. And sometimes you want one thing, sometimes you want something else.
Yeah, I'm just mad that the Santas started putting weight limits on their knees. It's just me though.
What?
It's just me
I
though.
never heard of such a thing. All right, well, thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having
Thanks for
us.
hosting.
Yeah, thanks for being a part of the conversation.
It's good.
Yeah.
Get the people's perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
The people.
It's always good. Good to invite the people
Give them
in.
a chance.
I believe the children are our future.
Have a voice.
Teach them well.
All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, Jason.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
See you
you.
next time.
Thanks, y'all.
If you have a question or something you would like us to discuss, drop us an email, sip@lastbeershow.com, or hit us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at The Last Beer Show. A reminder that we are proud members of the ABV Network. Go to abvnetwork.com to see all the amazing podcasts, or go to your podcast app of choice, search for something like The Last Beer Show, The Firewater Review, The Bourbon Daily, among others. And if you really want to have a good time, go to Instagram and follow the hashtag ABV Network Crew. There's always all kinds of stuff happening on there, and it's a lot of fun. So anyway, thanks for listening. Peace. Oh, wait. One more thing. Please do us a solid and go to iTunes, rate the show. We would be extremely grateful. Thank you very much. Thanks again for listening.